Hi everyone, I am here today to talk with Liz Landis from the Prism Tarot. Liz is an incredibly talented designer who not only has created the Prism Tarot and two additional Oracle decks, but she also has a fabulous Etsy shop that has a lot of really incredible jewelry, objects, stickers, a whole line of beautiful resin products. It's really incredible. So Liz currently has the Prism Tarot in its fourth edition rather. I'm super excited to invite her on. This is really great. Hi Liz, how are you
Hi,
doing?
good. Trying to figure out the setup
You
here.
know, the camera ratio and lighting and all of those things. It's always been interesting. I have the way my desk is set up now. It used to be in another room, and I could hang a really nice wall hanging and all these things. And now the windows are behind me, so I have to do a lot of adjusting in terms of lighting and everything else. It's kind of intense. Yeah. So how are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Good, really good. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm so excited to talk to you about all of your amazing creations, not just your decks, but also all of your Etsy offerings and everything too. I was going through your shop and there's so many beautiful things that you have listed on there. So
Cool. Thanks.
I just wanted to start by talking a bit about you. I noticed in your bio that it lists you that you list yourself as an artist and designer based in Austin, Texas, which is so fabulous. And you also mentioned that you're a toy sculptor, and I
I
wanted
am.
to ask you about that. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah. So my day job, I'm a freelance digital sculptor, and I focus on toys. I work with a bunch of different companies. The only one you've probably heard of is Hasbro.
Yeah.
Um, And I do some other stuff, sometimes jewelry, sometimes just like decorative objects, like pretty much anything that can be 3D printed and I can sculpt digitally.
Oh,
So yeah.
beautiful. That's amazing. I would think that would be such a fun job to explore. I mean, I'm always trying to find ways of channeling my inner child and getting that sense of creativity and exploration. That's fantastic.
Yeah, for sure. I love toys. I mean, you could probably see my background. It's just full of
Uh,
stuff and a lot of it is toys.
yeah, I have, and I bet you probably can't. Oh, yeah, you can.
Um,
My entire selection of stuffed animals,
cute.
which my husband kind of rolls his eyes a little bit, but I don't know. There's another person that I am friends with here in the tarot community, Brittany from Hermit's Heart, and I know that she has a huge collection of squishmallows and shared a photo recently of her wall with her shelf with all of her squishmallows on it. And she's like, it's making my inner child so happy. And I never really thought about it that way, but it really does. Like it nourishes me every time I see like the little Yoshi that my son gave me, and like just a little. There's a story behind each piece, and it's just
Yeah.
really lovely. And my wall actually can't see because it's facing me. But my wall actually looks a lot like yours because I have all of these postcards and photographs and different things from the tarot community, and it creates such a lovely sense of space when all of those things are there. It's really lovely. It's
Yeah,
nice
for
to see it
sure.
in reverse. That's
Yeah.
great. Yeah, so I thought I would start. I really want to get into chatting about your incredible Prism Tarot. But before I do, I thought I'd go back to basics and see, like, how did you get involved with tarot? What's your origin story for that?
Um, I don't know. It happened kind of early on, I guess high school-ish. It's kind of funny. I was first introduced to it through a video game series.
Ooh,
Um,
awesome.
I, yeah, so it's called Persona.
Okay,
I don't know if you've ever heard of it,
I haven't.
but yeah, so in that game, there are these social links, and all of them are based on a major arcana.
Oh, nice.
So it really introduced me to that concept, and it's also very like Jungian in that it talks about the shadow and the persona, and it's very psychological. I mean, it's a video game, so
Mhm.
it's like surprising. So yeah, that got me into it originally in high school when I played Persona 3. And then it just sort of went from there because I was like, "Oh, what is that? I want to learn more about it," and did a bunch of research and bought my own decks, and I was like, "This is just really cool." Um, Prior to that, I already sort of had an affinity for cards because I collected playing cards and would do playing card divination, but I hadn't really been exposed to tarot. It wasn't really available to me like I was pretty young. My parents aren't going to buy me a tarot deck. You know, it wasn't like a thing. But
Yeah.
I had a lot of playing cards and I was like obsessed with like stage magic and things like that. So I'd always like try to do little tricks, and then I started trying to do divination with them too. And yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I grew up with my grandmother and great aunts constantly playing cards. It's like Crazy Eights and Gin Rummy and Crib were like the cornerstone of my childhood. So I didn't find tarot till much later, but I love that there's the associations within playing cards as well. Like I found that fascinating. It's almost like working with something that's part of my whole life cycle when I incorporate that into my practice. It's really lovely. Oh,
Yeah.
that's amazing.
I
Yeah,
love
I'll have to look
reading
up
with playing
Persona.
cards.
Yeah, I've just started getting into that actually. For whatever reason, I have a bit of a block in my brain where I feel like clubs should be pentacles. I know that they're not, and literally like a club would be a wand, so that makes sense. But I have to like iron out that glitch in my brain that
Mhm.
tries to make that association
Yeah.
constantly because it makes so much more sense. But being able to juxtapose tarot with playing cards is so fascinating, and looking at the different correlations and
Mhm.
everything, it's really amazing. Oh, that's great. And there's a lot of tarot creators who come out with really beautiful playing decks as well.
Yeah, I
And
actually
great.
want to. It's
Yeah.
on my to-do list.
Oh,
Like I
that's
kind of already started it,
amazing.
but it's like on the back burner.
Oh, that's amazing.
Mhm.
So is it a similar aesthetic to the other decks that you've come up with,
Yeah,
or
yeah,
yeah.
so it's gonna be gem based
Mm,
still. So very similar style. Playing around with the concept of like a gem court, or forget like I want to base it off of precious gems, because you know there are
yeah,
four precious gems. There's diamond, sapphire, emerald, and ruby. So
yeah.
each suit would be one of the precious gems, and
Ooh,
then
I
go
love
from
that.
there.
That sounds incredible.
Mhm.
I love that sense of structure around those four primary gems,
Mhm.
and then going from there. That's. Oh, I'm so excited to see where you go with that. That's wonderful.
Yeah,
Um,
someday when I have time.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, the amount of things that you've created on your Etsy and with your decks is incredible. The fact that the Prism Tarot is now in a fourth edition, and I was looking through and reviewing all of the different iterations of that deck from the first one onward, and it's incredible the amount of work that's gone into that and just what you're constantly creating. I'm in awe of that. Um, yeah, because you have three decks that you've come up with, a Prism Tarot, which is now in its fourth edition, currently
Mhm.
on Kickstarter. And then there's also the Gem Cutters and the Rune Carvers Oracle, and I'd love to talk with you more about that later. I wanted to start with the Prism Tarot. How did that deck come into being? Because that was the first deck that you created, right? Yeah, what
Yes,
was
it was.
the creative process with that?
Yeah, so now I was reading with other decks obviously before then, but like as an artist, it was just like, you know, I felt like I could be more connected to something of my own creation. And
Yeah,
this sort of started, I guess, in 2018. It was sort of like a really cathartic, therapeutic thing for me, because I was going through a difficult time mentally with
yeah,
depression and some health issues and stuff. Um, so for me, it was like an escape, you know, like
yeah,
this. I started just painting the pastel galaxies as like a way to sort of relax my mind, and
yeah.
then and I was like, well, you know, maybe I could add some structure to this. Maybe I can expand upon it and create like a whole world, you know. And then, you know, I was really finding solace in my tarot deck. So then I just sort of put the two and two together, and I was like, I should do this. So I did, and
Oh,
it gave me something really positive to focus on and share with other people. And yeah.
yeah, yeah. Mental health challenges can be really debilitating. I deal with a lot of anxiety and secondary depression, and it can really throw you for a loop.
Mhm.
And I mean, I found tarot has been a lifeline for me in cases of the lockdown over the last couple of years and
Mhm.
just pandemic in general. It's really important, I think, to have those grounding rituals. And I have no skill as a visual artist. My daughter is a really talented artist. I am not. But I would imagine that taking it to the next level of actually crafting something for yourself within the lens of tarot is really therapeutic and really
Mhm.
cathartic for sure. And that's amazing. I love the images that you've come up with and the entire palette, the whole rainbow of colors, but it feels very nurturing and gentle and light. And I think, you know, with tarot, you can never shy away from the dark things, and it's an important part of life. The contrast of that is really essential.
Mhm.
But I love that your deck has such a beautiful, nurturing, gentle energy to it, right? Like it feels very supportive in terms of its approach. Like each deck, my husband always shakes his head at the number of decks that I have now. But at the same time, each one has a different energy and can be used in different ways. So it's really incredible. Yeah,
Hmm.
that's amazing. So
Sure.
you have four different editions now. There's the original Prism, and then you have the Brilliant Cut, which I think was the second
Hmm.
edition, and then the third is a Shiny Prism miniature edition,
Yeah.
right? And then this one is the gilded edition. So what was that process like of coming back to the original artwork and original structure and playing with it? And sorry, I'm just gonna let my dog in. I've got a little Chihuahua Terrier mix, and he gets very
Aw.
vocal.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, he makes up for what he lacks in size and volume. So
Yeah.
I hope I don't
I
let him
have a
in.
chihuahua
He's
too. I
fine.
know what you
Oh,
mean.
okay. Yeah, he's, I don't know. Yeah, he's claimed my Dominic's beanbag chair and blanket. So, he bought it to sit in for work because he works from home and he's got his desk set up. But more often than not, Pippin's claimed his space. So it's, yeah. Yeah. So, so I was just wondering what that process was like of revisiting the artwork and just looking at, because there's differences in each one of the decks in terms of the card backs and the even the edging and the box and everything. So what was that process like and how did that evolve for you?
Yeah, so the first edition was very much like I had a very specific idea of what I wanted with the matte finish and the white backs, and it was all very like I don't know, it was just very set in stone in my mind.
Yeah.
And then, that edition did so well and I sold out and I was like, well, people still want it. Like I was getting messages
Mm-hmm.
and people were like, oh, are you ever going to restock? And I was like, well, I don't know. I don't know if I can afford to. I don't know if
Mm-hmm.
there's enough interest. So then I thought about all the requests I had gotten for like special like treatments. And
Mm-hmm.
one big one was holographic edges. So I thought about it and I was like, well, what if I make a deck that's for everyone else and not just for me? So the second edition was really that. It was everyone in holographic edges, so I did that. And then my publisher told me, we can't do the holographic edges on the matte finish. You have to do glossy. And I'm like, well, you know what? That's perfect. So we'll do glossy. And then I was like, I want to have the contrast, so I did the black to contrast the white. So that was really it. This was really a devotion to everyone who had supported me. And I self-funded the second edition
Oh,
myself,
wow.
no Kickstarter.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, so it was a shorter run.
Mm-hmm.
I just got what I could afford, and yeah, it's done pretty well. I actually only have like 5 or so left of that edition. So if anyone wants it, snag it.
Now is the time.
Mhm.
Yeah, absolutely. So how did you find, because I think that you had self-published two of the decks and then the Gem Cutters Oracle and Rune deck were in the Kickstarter and then was the first edition a Kickstarter?
It was.
Okay, so how do you find, like I know there's pros and cons for each approach. So what was it like self-funding versus doing a Kickstarter? Like I know, yeah, I'd love to hear your opinions on that.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I love Kickstarter. I love the audience. Like it's a much different audience than just, like Instagram followers. It's people who really want to support creators. And you meet a lot of different people through that platform. Um, and it's nice. In the first one, I didn't know what to expect because I had never done it before. But the amount of support I got for that first campaign, it was really touching. So being able to bring my art to so many people who I probably wouldn't have been able to reach otherwise was really great. And I love Kickstarter for that.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
and also, of course, the financial aspect. You can't always afford to fund a minimum order quantity of 500 decks by yourself.
Yeah.
It's a lot of money, which is why I'm doing another Kickstarter right now.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, that was great. And then with the second edition, deciding not to do the Kickstarter, it was just me sort of being like, I can probably afford to do this. It'll probably, I'll make the money back because the first edition did so well. I think I can probably sell these out. It was just putting a lot of faith in the project and putting
Mhm.
my own money behind it. And yeah, it went well. I made the money back and it was good. Um, yeah, but I mean, right now I'm sort of in a less good financial position, so I can't
Yeah.
really afford to do that. So yeah, that's why I went back to Kickstarter.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the benefits too of Kickstarter is being able to access a wider audience. Like you said, it's a different audience there, but then there's also folks that will come and just search like Tarot Deck or Oracle Deck,
Mhm.
and they may not have crossed paths with you on Instagram or on Etsy or your website, which I'd like to get into later because it's utterly fabulous. But it's nice because you have that extra added layer of exposure to an extra audience, I guess, that you might not have found your work
Mhm.
otherwise, which is really
Mhm.
nice. I sometimes get a bit overwhelmed. Like I have to be careful not to search just tarot because there's so many incredible decks and creators that come up, and it can be a little bit overwhelming. But at the same time, it's great to be able to explore things that I wouldn't have found otherwise.
Yeah,
So that's really
it's
fabulous.
definitely dangerous.
Yeah, I have to rein myself in. We have an international move coming in January, so I had to take a really big step back in terms of what I'm backing or whatever else, just because of timing, right? Like in terms of when things are going to arrive and trying to navigate all of that. Yeah, it's a bit tricky, but what's my next question? Yeah, so I know that I actually I'd love to go through the different features in your fourth edition for the Kickstarter because I know it differs a little bit from the other two. So this new edition has different card back design, a new card back design. I think you'd mentioned that there was like a metallic gold ink finish on it, which is so
Yes.
lovely. Linen cardstock, handwritten symbols, and Italian card names on each of the cards. So I'd love to hear more about that. I love that you've included your penmanship on the cards and the Italian reference point for each of the cards. So yeah, tell me more about that.
Yeah, of course. So with the handwriting, I wanted to put a little more of my signature on it.
Yeah.
With the first two editions, I had a sigil that I had created, and that was on each card as sort of my signature. But with this, I wanted it to feel a little more personal.
Yeah.
This whole deck is much more personal for me. I've grown a lot as an artist over the last 3 or 4 years since the
Right.
first one came out. Um, and I have new techniques and I feel like I can really fulfill the original vision a lot better than I could back then.
Yeah.
So this is just part of that, really expanding upon what I originally wanted to do, my original intent, and yeah, just going back to the roots and making it feel right.
Yeah. That's amazing. I love the aesthetic of your handwriting and the way that that shows up on the cards. When I was in junior high, I took about a year to figure out what I wanted my penmanship to look like. So every time I'd go to the library to take out a book, because it used to be those old school, like you have to bring the little card out of the back and sign it. The librarian used to ask like whether I was actually the one taking out the books because it would look different each time. But I love seeing people's handwriting because it's such a personal thing, right? Like it's really special. That's amazing. And then you also have a watercolor texture in the background. We've shifted the artwork a little bit. There's no borders, and in this case, there's gold holographic edges. The last edition, or the second edition rather, it was more of a silver holographic, if
Mhm.
I remember. Yeah, and that's
Yeah.
beautiful. And then this deck has 81 cards, 78 traditional cards, the Prism card, the Void, and then an extra Sun card, which is a tribute to Nefertem. I'd love to hear a bit more about that card. That's fascinating.
Yeah, so Nefertum is my patron deity, and I I never really planned to take one on. It just sort of happened organically. But he's really inspired me, like with the gold and like it's always sort of been there. Like
Mm-hmm.
the lion figures in my cards and all the lotuses I used, like they've always been there, and
Mm-hmm.
I didn't really think about it. I was just like, that's what I want. But then I realized like this is him coming through my art. because
Yeah.
he's a Leonine deity. He's
Hmm.
the god of the blue lotus and perfume, and all that just really resonates with me. And working with him on this new edition, I feel like it's just really brought it more to life for me. So I wanted to do that tribute because he is a solar deity as well, and having the blue lotus on that card and the birth of Nefertem, like it's a vision that I wanted to be able to share. And I know it's not going to resonate with everyone, so I wanted to make it an optional. Like I didn't want to take out the original sun card because I know some people really like that. So I wanted
Right.
to have the two versions.
Oh, that's a beautiful addition. I love when there's extra cards that can be alternated in or substituted,
Mm-hmm.
and especially if someone's feeling like really working with that energy on any given day, that's a really nice way to incorporate that. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
My next question actually was to ask you about the lotus imagery. I know on your site you had a link to be able to read more about it, but I thought I'd ask you. So it's a direct association with that deity.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the reason for the inclusion. Oh, that's lovely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I love lotus imagery. There's something about that idea of growing in the mud and creating this really beautiful flower and evolving out of
Mm-hmm.
that that's always fascinated me. That's really beautiful. I
Yeah.
love that so much.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then the deck has a book style box with a magnetic clasp, and it comes with a fold out infographic, which is absolutely stunning. It's two-sided, right, with an astral calendar on one side and then a
Yeah.
tree of life on the other. I'd love to hear more about that.
Yeah, so every edition has come with that, and I wanted to provide it because I do put the astrological and planetary correspondences on each card, and I know
Mhm.
not everyone works with those or understands why they correspond to certain things. So
Yeah.
I love making infographics, and I love laying out correspondences. It's like one of my obsessions. It's just like finding connections between everything. And that's one of the reasons why I did incorporate all that symbolism, because it makes it easier for me
Yeah.
to read the cards if I can associate it with a zodiac sign or a planet, because I can make those connections in my head. So yeah, I wanted to provide it, and I can actually have one here, to just really help people with that, because I know it can be a difficult subject. But having it like all laid out clearly, and hopefully it's clear. I don't know. I feel like it's
I
clear,
love
but
that so much. Yeah, no, it is. I took a look. You've got a copy of the images on your website as well,
Mhm,
and I took a look at them, and I'm fascinated by the correspondences between astrology and tarot as I go
mhm,
through and incorporate more and more of that into my practice. And the fact that you have it all laid out so beautifully is
mhm.
incredible because those correspondences, it can be overwhelming, right?
Yeah.
But when you have it all laid out in a
Mhm,
visual format like that, it's very easy to see how things
mhm,
correspond. Actually, my daughter and I was looking through your website last night in preparation for this, and we looked up the images of the astrological archetypes with the zodiac decans and is it decans or decans? I'm never
I
sure how to
I don't
pronounce.
know. I say deacon, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, I know. No, I was gonna Google it, but then I wasn't sure, and yeah. So I've heard both. I think it's like a potato potato kind of situation for me.
Yeah.
And the astrological correspondences, and it was fascinating to go through because I'm the second decan of Gemini. My husband is the third, and then my daughter is December 3rd. So I think that's also the second for Sagittarius. And it was just fascinating to look through because you have this beautiful section on your website that breaks down all of the different decans and the correspondences and it was so fascinating to look at the different characteristics for those particular decans and how they correspond to our personality types. So I really appreciate that you put so much time and energy into creating that because it's such a wonderful reference point. And then to
Mhm.
have that visual image to cross-reference is super helpful as well. Plus, it's just visually stunning. I love all the colors that you've incorporated and all the detail. It's
Thank you.
really incredible. Yeah, so thank you for that.
Yeah.
Um,
The astrological archetypes are something that I've been working on for a long time, making them like as accurate as possible with as many
yeah.
correspondences as I can, and sort of I use them when I do readings for people.
Mhm.
Um, and the feedback I get is always very positive. Like people really feel connected to them. So, I mean, my ultimate goal is to eventually write a book, specifically about those archetypes and all of their connections and things. But
Oh,
again, it's another
incredible.
project that I'll eventually get time for.
Yeah, absolutely. It's always a juggling act trying to carve out the time for those things. But I'm super excited that you have that in the works because it's incredible information, and the amount of research and care that you've obviously put into it is really, really fabulous. Yeah,
Thanks.
even just looking on the website and cross-referencing everything, it's the deacons are things that I have only just started dabbing my toes into and looking at those correspondences, but it's really fascinating. And I find the more I can incorporate that into my day-to-day reading and practice, the more it just adds an extra layer of understanding to everything that is really
Yeah.
incredible. I'm a lifelong student and I love diving deep into information, so that's really incredible.
Yeah.
And then with the Kickstarter, you also have an amazing selection of add-ons with that too, including I think there's a signed box option, single prism dice, brass prism lotus necklace, which is stunning, some 5x7 textured art prints, laser cut card grid, and altarpiece. I wanted to ask you about that. It's absolutely
Yeah.
stunning.
Thank you.
Do you have someone that you work with? Because I think on your Etsy you also have a Zodiac casting
Yeah.
board. So did you go through the same artist for that, or
Yeah,
creator?
so they're a local business. My friend Sam runs with her partner Sebastian, and they're called Anomaly Forge. And they do all sorts of laser cutting and 3D printing and really awesome stuff. So actually, I have the board. You want to see it?
Oh,
There
it's
you go.
stunning.
Yeah, I
That's
love it.
gorgeous.
Yeah, so they're really awesome to work with. They can do the
Yeah.
stuff super fast for me. I just send them a file and yeah, so I'm happy with that for sure.
Yeah, yeah, it's gorgeous. Really, really stunning. And you have a new black and gold cloth for this campaign as well, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, stunning.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, I haven't like I won't be able to really test print that. I have to order it in like
yeah,
batches. But yeah, the design was really fun to make.
yeah,
I was going for sort of like an art deco Egyptian feel to go with Nefertem and the whole feel of the deck and
yeah,
just incorporating all that symbolism. So
yeah,
yeah, I'm pretty happy with how it turned out too.
yeah, it's gorgeous. Well, you have a number of different spread cloths on your Etsy site as well. Um, Yeah, they're all beautiful. And there's one that goes with each specific edition of the deck, right?
Hmm.
Did I notice that? Yeah, it's lovely. And this one corresponds so beautifully with the backs of the cards too, and the way you designed it. There's a synchronicity there that's really beautiful. Um, and you also have the option to add on the Gem Cutters Oracle, Rune Carver's Oracle, the Miniature Prism deck. Yeah, and there's also a Pastel Galaxy deck wrap option there, which is absolutely stunning. So do you source them from someone, or do you make them yourself, or like what's the
Yeah,
creation process for that?
so I'm supporting a lot of local businesses and friends with
Yeah.
this. So my friend Blake, who has a small business called Glorious Knickknacks, sews the deck wraps for me. I designed the custom fabric, but he does all the sewing, and they're really lovely and protective.
Beautiful.
I have one here.
Oh,
So
that's
yeah,
great.
these are great, and I like them because you can open them up, do a little 3-card spread on the inside, and store your
Yeah.
stuff. And, yeah, and I had these for the first edition as well with a different seamstress who was in Spain actually. So I went more local with this one, but these are really popular, so I wanted to bring them back. And before it was with white fabric, and this
Yeah,
has the black, so it yeah meshes a little more.
I really like that. It provides a really beautiful contrast to the colors on the cards to be able to put
Mhm.
them against a black background like that. And the multicolored fabric that you have is so gorgeous. I love that you're sourcing so many elements of this Kickstarter from local business.
Mhm.
That's incredible. I love that so
Yeah.
much.
Yeah, I made a
Um,
lot of friends with other small business owners through our local, we call it the witches markets. So it's just like a group of witches and makers who get together pretty much every weekend. I don't do it every weekend. I do like once a month or so. But yeah, we just do little pop-up markets together and bring our witchy wares to the community, and it's really fun.
oh, that's amazing.
Mhm.
Yeah, I love having opportunities like that for local business to come together and share in space and share in experience and all of that. That's really incredible. Oh,
Mhm.
that's fabulous. I wish I lived closer to Austin so I could check it out. Excuse me. Yeah, so I'd love to talk to you a little bit more about your Oracle decks. Because you have the Gem Cutters Oracle and also the Rune Carvers Oracle. So what was the process of creating those like?
So with the rune carvers, I originally made a set of resin runes to correspond to my tarot deck. So like with the gems and like the different gems for the different minor arcana have correspondences to the different runes and things. And I had a lot of trouble mass producing them. They're quite difficult to make. So I wanted to create an easier version, I guess, like
Yeah.
a more accessible version. So that's where the deck came in. So I just took those gem designs and, just made them into the cuts of those specific gems. Yeah, and I was a little pocket-sized, handy-dandy
Oh,
gem
beautiful.
rune oracle.
Yeah, that's
Um,
gorgeous. Oh, I love the aesthetic of it. And it works so beautifully with the Prism Tarot as well, like when you cross-reference the different decks. That's
yeah.
amazing.
Yeah,
Um,
I like
so
using runes as clarifiers because they're so straightforward. So,
yeah, yeah, my primary practice is with tarot and astrology and then secondary astrology. And then I'm starting to put I'm starting to dip a toe into a lot of different other areas like Lenormand and also rune work as well. And that's amazing. And it can be, I have a couple of rune dice, but I feel like the cards are really helpful because you can, cross-reference them with the tarot as you're
mhm.
going, and it's a really beautiful medium for that. It's
Yeah,
wonderful.
yeah. And with them, I sort of, the shapes and colors, I try to create some workable correspondences because the runes, it's
Mhm.
like learning a different language. So when you have
Yeah.
visually something that makes them, because most runes are just, they're carved on stones traditionally,
Mhm.
they're just the symbols. But when you have the color and shape to sort of help you internalize the meanings, I feel like it's really helpful, especially when you're first starting out, but also just because you can connect with something else.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, that's lovely. And the Gem Cutters Oracle, what was your inspiration for that?
So I worked for a very short time as a jeweler's apprentice,
Mhm.
and in that time I spent a lot of time with diamonds and precious gems and stones. So like I learned a lot about different cuts
Mhm.
and all of that, and I thought it was really interesting, the geometry, the numerology, what makes different cuts shine more than others,
Mhm.
and just like the symbolism and like how much these stones actually mean to people on a personal level. So, that was really the inspiration. I was like, wow, there's so many really intricate and awesome gem cuts. And like, I love crystals, obviously, and stones. So I was like, well, I really want to learn more about this.
Yeah.
So, I was looking deeper into like, where's the sacred geometry? What is the origin of this cut? Why was it
Mhm.
created? Traditionally, how is it used? Like, is it an engagement thing or a friendship thing? That sort of stuff.
Mhm. Yeah.
And yeah, just went from there, like searching for meaning. And like I said, I'm obsessed with correspondences. So
Yeah.
I I created a whole correspondence system with astrology and color, and yeah, so it was really just like a fun pet project for me. But I feel like it's really really meaningful and powerful the way it turned out because
Yeah.
I don't know, I just it's something that I really connect with. I don't know if other people do, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, I feel like when you create something because it's something that you want to use for yourself and you have a deep personal investment in it, that shines through in what you create and it makes it so much more accessible and special for other people because there's so much love and care that's put into it. And I can relate to that fascination with correspondences because once you start finding connections with things, it's hard to stop, right? And investigating how things correspond. And I know there's language of flowers in the Victorian era, and I want to explore that a little bit further because looking at those correspondences, like when you mentioned how different stones have different relationships with, is it a relationship or a friendship stone or what's the connection here? And then of course there's all the astrological correspondences with different stones for different months,
Yeah.
and that's always been fascinating to me.
Mhm.
So I love that you created an oracle deck around that. That's
Yeah,
fascinating.
and it's interesting you bring up the flowers because so many gem cuts are named for flowers and
Mhm.
originated during that time when flowers had such meaning attributed to them. So a lot of the flower stone meanings do directly correlate to actual flower meanings.
Oh, amazing. Yeah, it's I feel like I've been a little intimidated to get into it just because I feel like there's so much, right? Like I think there was even in the Victorian era they had like a flower dictionary or book or reference or something that you would use to figure out what your correspondence was to make sure that the flower that you were sending to send the message was sending the appropriate message that you
Yeah.
wanted to send. Um, yeah, and it's amazing to me how you can communicate non-verbally using symbols like that, right? Whether it's a flower, it's a gemstone, and it can be so intimate and personal because you choose something because it has meaning to you and the person that you're giving it to, and it doesn't necessarily have to be for anyone else's knowledge or reference, but it's like a very intimate practice. That's
Yeah.
really beautiful. Yeah. Oh, that's amazing. Yeah, so I referenced this before, but your website, the Prism Tarot, is an incredible resource for anyone interested in tarot and especially correspondences. Like I was really amazed at the information that you have on there with the astral calendar, the tree of life, the astrological archetypes and correspondences, and your blog. I think there's amazing, amazing materials there. And information and just exploration. It's incredible. And I also wanted to ask you about the Dominion game that you set up for using with the Prism Tarot. I was really intrigued by that.
Yeah. Well, first, with the website, my business motto is full spectrum magic for everyone. And that means
Mhm.
everyone who wants to put in the effort and feels drawn to it. And that's why I like putting information out there in easily digestible ways for people because it's the end result of years of study on my part. And for
Yeah.
difficult concepts like the tree of life, for instance, like
Mhm.
a lot of it, the breakdown and clarification of that was just for me. And I
Yeah.
was like, well, so many other people could really benefit from that. So
Mhm.
that's why I do that.
Absolutely.
But yeah, with Dominion, I don't know, it was because I have a game design background.
Mhm.
I went to school for game design.
Oh, that's awesome.
Um, yeah, so I just sort of wanted to play with that because, the roots of tarot are in gaming as well.
Mhm.
And I was like, well, what if, turn that concept on its head a little, make it more in tune with the meanings and hierarchy of the cards. I took a lot of inspiration from the Tree of Life. And I'm not sure it was 100% successful. I haven't really played it much, and I don't know that many people have. But, it's just a concept,
Yeah,
something to play with.
that's amazing. I have three kids. My son is 10, soon to be 11, and my girls are 14 and 15. And there was a short period of time where they were kind of interested in tarot. My eldest still is, I think, more from an aesthetic perspective. My 14-year-old now is much more into individuating, which is totally healthy and wonderful, but she doesn't want anything to do with tarot because, of course, it's my thing.
Yeah.
But I feel like that the Dominion game might be a fun way to kind of incorporate just cards in general and explore and play and just have fun with it, in a new way that helps. I find anytime that I use tarot in a way that's a little bit different, I learn something more about the practice and the cards. And, reading guidebooks is fascinating to me because there can be like a passage that opens my understanding up in a way that I
Mhm.
hadn't considered before, right? I think it's true with games or even playing cards, using a deck of playing cards instead of tarot and looking at what kinds of things come up through just having a number of spades or a number of hearts, right? Rather than the
Yeah.
visual image of the RWS system, which is near and dear to my heart and I love it. But looking at Tarot de Marseille, for example, is really fascinating to me because it's more of the numerological correspondences and less of the visual storytelling that you get with the RWS. So that's amazing. Yeah, I really want to give the game a try because I feel like it would be a really interesting way to kind of expand my understanding of tarot in a way that's light and playful and fun. I think
Yeah.
that's
Well, let
a
me
really
know
great
if
way.
you try it and
Yeah,
how it goes, because I haven't really had
absolutely.
many people like tell me like
Yeah.
or play test it, I suppose.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I'd love to. That would be awesome. Um, and I wanted to also mention your Etsy. I've referenced it a few times because I'm just so impressed. You've got all of your decks listed there, a whole range of different spread cloths, like different prints, and they're all absolutely stunning. And you have a wide range of jewelry too. Like there's metal jewelry, and then also you do a lot of resin work, I think, and there's some beautiful resin jewelry pieces as well that you've created, which is lovely. Stickers, beautiful lights, the cameo brooches and stands that you have are so lovely. What's the process of creating those?
Yeah, so that is digital sculpting and 3D printing. So I take a little from my day job and bring it into my I have my own resin printer, so whenever I get an idea, I can just
Yeah,
sculpt it and create it, which is really fun.
yeah,
But yeah, I love old cameos and things. So I was like, well, I should just try to make some of my own designs, and yeah, it's really fun making those. So
yeah. That's amazing. I was showing Addie, my 14-year-old, your the one that you have. I think it's like a is it a bat? It's a black one that is oval shaped and on a stand for
oh
altar.
yeah,
And
yeah.
yeah, it was beautiful. I mean, they're all beautiful, but that one in particular she really loved.
Mhm.
Um, and I also wanted to ask you, you have these beautiful mini tarot themed altar trays with a candle. And I think you mentioned they were vintage upcycled 1950s snack trays. They come
Yeah.
with a skull spoon, a tarot card that's inlaid with symbols in resin, and a beautiful teacup with a custom candle.
Mhm.
They're absolutely stunning and so unique to anything that I've seen before. And I was wondering what inspired you to create them. I think there's one for Justice, one for Three of Swords, and one for the High Priestess currently, right?
Right,
They're
yeah.
gorgeous.
Well, it's really just Justice and the High Priestess. The Three of Swords ones is just a simple resin tray
Oh yeah,
without
that's true.
the candle stuff. But yeah, no,
Yeah.
I love vintage
Mhm.
everything. And so I found these snack trays, and I was like, wow, I could really do something with those. Like they needed
Yeah.
some love, they needed a new use.
Yeah.
And I love altars, so I was just like, I love teacup candles, like people always do that, and
Yeah.
I use scents in my practice a lot.
Mhm.
So I have a ton of essential oils and things like that. So I have all these correspondences for the tarot. So I was like, well, okay, so I'll put the tarot card in the tray and then make the
Mhm.
candle correspond scent-wise to the card,
Yeah.
and it can be like a nice little mini altar for anyone who
Mhm.
wanted to use it that way.
Oh, that's beautiful. Yeah, they're beautiful pieces, and I love that you have the tarot correspondences and all those little elements that you included, like even down to the essential oils that you use and everything else. It's really, really a beautiful creation.
Thanks.
Yeah, that's
Yeah, I
that's
really
incredible.
like those. I actually have never sold one.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Oh,
it's funny.
yeah, I'm surprised because they're really unique and beautiful, and yeah, I love them. They're really gorgeous. Yeah, so um, what are some things that you would love people to know about your current Kickstarter? Is there anything that you wanted to add to what I mentioned already?
Um, well, I mean, I think we covered most of it, but I really do think this is going to be the definitive and possibly last edition,
Hmm.
depending on how things go, if it even gets funded, which it doesn't really have any momentum right now, so I'm not terribly confident that it's going to be successful. But if it does, I think it'll be a really beautiful testament to its success over the years, and it's the truest to my vision so far. And I think it'll be um, just really nice to work with. And even if it doesn't get funded, I'll probably make a version for myself without all the bells and whistles, but with the
Yeah,
updated artwork. So,
beautiful. Yeah, well, Kickstarter can be incredibly tricky in terms of timing and in terms of, like, I've seen certain campaigns just go off the rails and then other ones are slower, and I can't wrap my head around why, because there isn't any kind of quantifying theme that, gives one more merit than others. Like it is a tricky platform for that reason, right? But I think and there's so many elements of this deck that are absolutely incredible. And yeah, I hope it reaches the funding threshold because it's absolutely gorgeous. And you have all these beautiful additions too. Like as someone who lives in Canada, shipping can often be prohibitive. So I love when creators like yourself add add-ons with additional decks and elements that can be shipped together because that is super helpful in terms of managing all of that. Yeah. So do you use BackerKit for your Kickstarter, or have you found something else that works better?
Yeah, so I've never used a pledge manager before. This is the first campaign that I'm going to. So I'm still weighing the pros and cons of each, but I know I am going to use one because, you know, shipping has sort of kicked my butt in the past. So now I kind of want to make sure I'm doing it correctly and, you know, as accurately as possible, both for me and the consumer. You know, I don't want to overcharge, but I also don't want to undercharge too much.
No, you don't want to. I mean, shipping costs have gone up so much. So any way that you can find to kind of alleviate that is super helpful. I know here in Canada, it's ridiculous. Like even just shipping something to the next province over, you're looking at least $20 for like small package. Yeah. We went on a full-time. We traveled full-time in an RV with our kids for 20 months before landing in Nova Scotia, and it was incredible to me the difference in shipping costs in the US compared to Canada. Like it was a significant difference for sure. So with the Kickstarter campaign, what's your timeline for that?
So it goes for a month, so it'll end May 4th, I think, something like that.
Yeah.
So let me see. It says we have 25 days to go. So
yeah, absolutely. And then once the campaign ends, I know it takes a couple weeks for Kickstarter to collect pledge money and provide you with that. And then you can start the printing process. So it looks like you have all of the artwork completed already, which is amazing. And then what's the timeline in terms of shipping everything out?
Yeah, I'm actually still working on updating a few of the minor arcana, but it shouldn't take much longer. I should be done before the campaign's over. And then, so yeah, so 2 weeks to get the funds, and then I have to send everything over to the printer, and then it can be a little back and forth there just to make sure everything looks good. And then I'll get a hard copy proof in like a few weeks, and then after that, it's like 3 to 4 months. So right now, I'm hoping by October to be able to start shipping.
Yeah,
so
that's amazing. And in terms of shipping for the Kickstarter, is it North America based, or are you opening it up internationally as well?
So I am doing international with some exceptions. Like I can't ship to Germany because they have weird packaging that I haven't gotten on board with. And so, you know, and then there are other restrictions, obviously. And then with like VAT and stuff, I'm not able to actually collect it. So people will have to pay that on their end. So if you're like buying from the UK or something, that's something, you know, UK backers need to keep in mind. But I have all that, I hope, clearly enough laid out on the page that people won't be taken aback by it.
Absolutely. Well, I think if you're located internationally, and even in Canada, it's international, just, you know, North America, but still international. That's just something to kind of keep in mind, right? In terms of like, I never know when I have something coming in if, you know, the customs official is going to add something to it or not. In most cases, it's come through fine, but there have been a few times, and that's just part and parcel with that whole process, right? So yeah, absolutely. Oh, that's great. Yeah, because we have our move coming up, like I said, I've been holding off on backing too much just because I don't know in terms of timing. Because I mean, with Kickstarter, things can be delayed, right? Like that's just a natural part of the process.
Yeah.
So, but now that I know you have international shipping, that's very good to know, because if it is delayed for any reason, then I can still kind of coordinate whatever. So
yeah, of course. And like I won't finalize addresses until like right before I'm planning to ship, so that'd be like 5 months from now. So you know.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm still in the safety zone now because we're not going till January, so we're planning to move to Spain. So
wow.
yeah, January is kind of the time frame that we're looking at, kind of just as soon as the holiday season is done. So it gives us some time to plan. Anytime we've had a big move before, it's all come together kind of very quickly. So it's interesting having this kind of longer lead time. It's great in terms of planning, but then in terms of, yeah, just staying motivated to, get things done. There isn't that sense of urgency when it's a smaller window. So yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, that's really great. Oh, amazing. So is there anything else that you would like folks to know about your business, about your creations, about any of it?
Um, well, I think we've covered everything. I just want to be able to keep doing it,
Yeah,
want to keep being able to
absolutely.
bring the full spectrum magic to everybody.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
I'm hoping, fingers crossed, that the campaign does well and I'll have decks to sell again.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, and there's still for anyone who is interested in the second edition, you had mentioned there's like 5 copies left, so definitely help on that for
Yeah,
sure. Yeah, that's
and I
amazing.
still have
So,
quite a few of the miniature ones, so
oh,
that one's a little
fantastic.
cheaper to publish.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. So I wanted to ask you about that actually. That's the one thing that we didn't touch on. I would love to know a bit more about the details for that particular deck. I think it's a smaller format than traditional
Mhm.
Sparrow size, right?
Yeah, so if you look at it, it's like business card size. So this is the
Okay.
first edition. This is
Yeah,
the shiny. So
beautiful.
yeah, they're pretty small,
Yeah,
nice pocket
yeah,
size,
yeah.
um,
Oh, I love
different
the
back.
backs on those. That's beautiful.
And they have the holographic fronts.
Ooh,
So that's why it's called the Shiny Edition.
yeah,
Um,
it's
and
gorgeous.
for me, yeah, I wanted like, so I published these like right before the holidays because I wanted
Mhm.
like something that people could like gift,
Yeah,
I guess. Um,
yeah.
so yeah, I like mini decks because I have
Mhm.
super small hands, and so it's another
Yeah,
kind of self-indulgence for me. But also, I just think it's cute.
yeah. Well, they're great for
Um,
travel too. Like
yeah,
it's really handy to be able to tuck into a bag and bring with you wherever you're going as well.
yeah,
That's great. Yeah.
yeah, and because I made the artwork smaller, I did take the borders off, so
Okay.
it's a little more clear.
Oh, that's a
Um,
beautiful card. I love that so much.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, and I totally slipped on asking you some details about the actual deck as well, which I can't believe I did that. So, in terms of the different suits and everything else, like, was there a favorite suit for you to work on? Was there something that you found a little more challenging? Like, what was that process like?
Um, my favorite suit is Cups as a Scorpio,
Mhm.
but
Mhm.
actually working on them, I probably enjoyed working on the Pentacles most
Yeah,
because I don't know, there's just something really nice and crisp about them. It was much more clear
yeah.
because it's just the Pentacle gem, and
Mhm.
I struggled a lot with the swords because trying to make the sword look metal without it, like I was going for like a pearly sort of look.
Mhm.
It was a struggle to get the right
Yeah.
aesthetic for that one, and it took a lot of doing, but I eventually got there. And also just the imagery for swords is so much darker than the other suits,
Mhm.
so there was a bit of a balance there.
Mhm.
um
Do you have a
yeah.
favorite words card that you worked on?
um Swords specifically.
Yeah.
uh yeah, I really like the knight and the three. I can maybe find those.
Yeah.
Let's see.
I'm with you with cups. I find I'm Gemini Sun, Libra rising, and then Scorpio moon. And actually, my Scorpio placement is the one that I gravitate towards the most. And I find I gravitate towards cups as a suit
Mm-hmm.
more than any others.
Yeah.
I find I'm most challenged by the swords. I mean, it's a challenging suit.
Mhm.
And I'm in my head so much that I think I just need something to ground me. I mean, pentacles would be good, but I always gravitate towards the nourishing, like water energy of cups for sure.
Yeah.
I can really relate to that.
Actually, looking at it now, I really liked the Six of Swords. It's a little
Oh,
shiny,
it's
but
beautiful.
so this one has a lot of storytelling, and I used a
Yeah.
lot of desert imagery, which is another thing that was
Mm,
like I had all these dreams and visions of the desert, which I
mhm.
eventually figured out was like leading me to Nefertiti. But before then, I was like, I don't know, it's just like an aesthetic I like. But it's so funny looking back at the
Yeah,
artwork and how much of him is in it before I even realized it. Um,
yeah.
But yeah, I
I
like this one because, the figure's letting go of their burdens. They're
yeah,
leaving footprints in a trail in the sand. They're dropping their swords. They're going towards an oasis. They're leaving things behind.
yeah,
And I really like the kind of storytelling I could do with this card.
yeah,
Like more simple cards like the three where it's like I like that card a lot where it's the heart gem with the three swords through it, but there's no figure there. There's
yeah,
no emotion like from a figure and like really posing them and trying to get that sort of defeated but hopeful emotion through. Like that was really fun for me.
yeah. I love the color palette that you used on that card too. It really brings in that desert energy, and is the contrast of the pinks and the yellows is really beautiful. Yeah,
Thank you.
that's awesome. In terms of the major arcana, were there cards that you found more challenging or really enjoyed making?
Hmm. Let's see. So those ones were a bit easier for me to visualize. Let's see. So, you mentioned your little chihuahua before, so I just want to point out I have my moon
Oh,
card, and this little dog is actually based on my chihuahua Dusty.
oh,
Um,
I love that card so much. I
yeah,
was just looking at it earlier. It's beautiful.
yeah,
I love
and
all the different elements you've incorporated in the color palette as well. It reminds me of dusk, which is one of my favorite times of day, just with the purples and the blues, and oh,
yeah,
it's lovely.
Dusty shows up on the Fool as
Lo-
well. You can see him there.
Oh, I love that. That's a sweetheart. Oh,
Yeah,
that's
so
beautiful.
this one
Yeah,
was
yeah,
fun.
yeah, beautiful. Um, And you have two additional cards with the deck too, the Void and the Prism cards. And I'd love to
Mhm.
hear the story behind the creation of those two.
Yeah, so I wanted to add this additional duality because the tarot is full of duality with
Mhm.
light and dark,
Yeah.
masculine, feminine, shadow and persona, and all these different elements. Um, and so I wanted to really take the prism concept and push it so that everything came together. So with the
Mhm.
prism card, the prism and the void are two sides of one coin.
Mhm.
So we have the prism representing clarity and the void representing obscurity. So
Oh, amazing.
if you want to use these, yeah, if you want to use these cards in a reading, here they are. So the prism would be a good sign that like your intuition's in sync and
Mhm.
your reading's going to be accurate and you're seeing things clearly. And then the void is sort of the opposite, where like maybe it's time to put the cards down, maybe
Yeah,
you're not feeling quite right. There's a lot, and you can read about that in the guidebook and stuff as well. But yeah, I
absolutely.
just sort of wanted to add a little extra guidance on theme.
Yeah, that's amazing. So, what was the process like of putting together the guidebook? I think we've got just a couple more minutes. I don't know. I think Instagram has started cutting down lives to like an hour,
Mhm.
so I apologize if we do get cut off. But
It's
I was
okay.
just curious about the guidebook and what the process of writing it was like.
Yeah, so, when I was making the deck, every time I finished a card, I'd put it on my blog and write about it. So the
Yeah.
guidebook is pretty much like a condensed version of that. So I
Oh,
kind of already
amazing.
had all the content. I just had to put it, like format it in a way that would fit in the little white book.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was just sort of a simplification, I guess, of a lot of different thoughts and trying to make it as clear and digestible as possible for people without being too verbose, which sometimes I do struggle with.
You and me both. Yeah, that's amazing. Oh, fabulous. Yeah, well, and your blog is, are all of those posts about the cards still up on your blog?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Oh, amazing. Yeah, I'd love to explore that a bit more.
Mhm.
That's fascinating. Oh,
I
amazing.
need to post more. I haven't for a bit, but yeah, all the original posts are up there.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah, so before we get cut off, I'm so because with my live with Logan, we got cut off and I wasn't expecting it. And I felt so bad because it was just like this random mid-sentence cut off. Yeah, so before that happens, I just wanted to ask you, well, just wanted to confirm that everyone knows where to find you. So here on Instagram, and then you also have your Etsy page, which is that under your name or under Prism Tarot?
Um, it,
I forgot
it's
to
Liz
include it.
Landis Accessories,
Okay.
which is an old name because I've
Yeah.
had the Etsy forever. So
Yeah, I know that's amazing. And then the other thing is the prismtarot.com is your website that has all of your fabulous resources on there. So,
yeah, and you can
um,
find all of my social links and Etsy shop links through there too. So it's sort of one stop,
yeah,
to find everything.
absolutely. That's amazing. Well, thank you so much for joining me. It's been
Yeah,
an absolute pleasure chatting with you about all of your incredible creations. There's so many of them. And I was so excited and looking forward to this chat because I'm a longtime admirer of your work. And
thank
it's,
you
yeah,
so
so
much,
thank you.
and yeah, thanks for making the time
Yeah,
to chat with me. Really appreciate it.
absolutely. I hope you have a wonderful weekend.
You
Thanks
too.
again.
Bye. Thanks.